The grand hall of the Celestial Archive Academy glittered with lights from a dozen different star systems. Cassandra Winters stood near the back of the crowd, trying not to feel out of place among the hundreds of alien students and professors who had gathered for tonight's exhibition. She was one of only 3 humans at the entire academy, and sometimes that made her feel very small. The academy floated in space on Kepler 7 station, a neutral ground where species from all across the galaxy came to study the past. Cass had worked for 3 years to earn her place here as a xenoarchaeology student. She loved ancient mysteries and dead civilizations. There was something safe about studying people who were already gone. "Attention, honored guests!" a voice boomed through the hall. Director Calseth, a tall Zetherian with silver skin and too many eyes, stood on the central platform. "Tonight, we reveal the greatest collection of artifacts ever assembled. 7 civilizations, all lost to time, all speaking to us from the ancient dark." The lights dimmed. 7 pedestals rose from the floor, each holding a different artifact. Cass leaned forward, her heart beating faster. This was why she had come to the academy. This was what she lived for. The crowd moved forward as the director explained each piece. There was a crystal that hummed with inner light from the Solothian Empire, extinct for 15,000 years. A metal sculpture from the Thorani Collective that seemed to shift shape when no one looked directly at it. A data cube from the Tigzari Concordance that no one had figured out how to open. Cass barely heard the explanations. Her eyes had locked onto the 4th pedestal. On it sat a tall, black obelisk, smooth as glass and covered in strange symbols that glowed faintly blue. The label said it came from the Velkaran civilization, dead for 12,000 years. But that wasn't what made Cass forget to breathe. Carved into the base of the obelisk, clear as day, was her family crest. A phoenix wrapped around a star. The exact same design she wore on a pendant around her neck right now. "Impossible," she whispered. Her hand went to her throat, touching the pendant through her shirt. She had worn it every day since her grandmother gave it to her before she died. The old woman had made her promise to always keep it close, said it was important, though she never explained why. Cass pushed through the crowd. Not caring about the annoyed chittering from a group of Karvathi students she bumped past. She had to get closer. She had to see if she was imagining things. She wasn't. The symbol carved into the 12,000-year-old artifact was identical to her family crest in every detail. The curve of the phoenix's wings, the number of points on the star, even the way the tail feathers wrapped around the star's lower point. It was perfect. It was exact. "Remarkable, isn't it?" Professor Thelix appeared beside her, his forearms folded across his chest. The Karvathi professor had been her instructor for 2 semesters. He gestured at the obelisk with one clawed hand. "The Velkaran were masters of dimensional mathematics. We believe this obelisk was some kind of computational device, though we cannot decipher the symbols." "That symbol," Cass said, pointing with a shaking finger. "On the base. Do you know what it means?" Thelix's scaled face tilted in what might have been a shrug. "We have catalogued over 40,000 symbols from the Velkaran sites. That one appears frequently, but we have not determined its significance. Why do you ask?" Cass pulled her pendant out from under her shirt. The metal was warm from her skin. "Because it's my family crest. It's been in my family for hundreds of years." The professor stared at the pendant, then at the obelisk, then back at the pendant. His inner eyelids blinked slowly. "A coincidence, surely. Parallel evolution of symbolic forms is not uncommon. Many species independently develop similar geometric patterns." "But it's exactly the same," Cass insisted. "Miss Winters, the human mind is prone to pareidolia. You see patterns that confirm your expectations. Perhaps the symbols are merely similar, and your mind fills in the rest." Thelix's tone was kind but firm. I would advise against drawing grand conclusions from superficial resemblances. Before Cass could argue, a group of dignitaries approached the obelisk, and she was forced to step back. She watched from a distance as alien ambassadors and wealthy collectors examined the artifacts, taking pictures and asking questions. No one else seemed to notice the symbol. No one else cared. Her roommate Ziara found her an hour later, still standing in the same spot, staring at the obelisk. Ziara was Thessian, with 4 arms and skin that changed color with her moods. Right now, she was a concerned purple. Cass, the gala is ending. We should return to our quarters. Ziara's primary arms touched Cass's shoulder gently. Are you well? I need to scan that obelisk, Cass said. I need to get a closer look. The artifacts are under heavy security. You know this. Ziara's secondary arms gestured at the invisible barrier fields surrounding each pedestal. Why are you so interested in this particular piece? Cass showed her the pendant. Then she pointed at the base of the obelisk, where the symbol still glowed faintly in the dim light. Ziara's skin rippled through several colors before settling on a confused yellow-green. That is unusual, Ziara admitted. But Professor Thelix is likely correct. Coincidence is more probable than any alternative explanation. Maybe, Cass said, but she didn't believe it. She had spent her whole life studying patterns and symbols. This wasn't coincidence. This was something else. That night, Cass couldn't sleep. She lay in her bunk, staring at the ceiling of the small room she shared with Ziara. Her mind kept returning to the obelisk, to the symbol, to her grandmother's last words. Keep it close, little bird, the old woman had said, pressing the pendant into Cass's hand. When the time comes, you'll understand. The family has carried this burden for a long, long time, longer than you know. Cass had thought her grandmother was just being sentimental, the way old people got near the end. But what if it had been more than that? What if the old woman had known something? She pulled up her personal files on her datapad, scrolling through the family documents her grandmother had made her promise to preserve. There were old photographs, scanned letters, digitized records going back hundreds of years. The Winters family wasn't special. They had been farmers, teachers, small merchants, ordinary people living ordinary lives. But the crest appeared everywhere, in paintings from 300 years ago, in a letter from the Renaissance period, in a fragment that claimed to be from a Roman merchant family. Always the same, always the phoenix and the star. Cass sat up suddenly, making Ziara grunt in her sleep across the room. She opened a new program and began running image comparisons, matching her family crest against the symbol on the obelisk. The computer confirmed what her eyes had already told her. They were identical, not similar, not close. Perfect matches. She pulled up more files, diving deeper into her family history. Her grandmother had been obsessive about record-keeping, scanning every old document she could find. Most of it was boring. Birth certificates, property deeds, marriage licenses. But then Cass found something else. A journal. Her grandmother's journal filled with sketches and notes. Cass had looked at it before and assumed the drawings were just doodles, the kind of thing people drew when they were thinking about something else. But now, with the image of the obelisk fresh in her mind, she looked again. The symbols from the obelisk were there, dozens of them, scattered throughout the journal like decorations in the margins. Her grandmother had been drawing Velcaran symbols, symbols from a civilization that died 12,000 years ago. Cass's hands were shaking as she pulled up the exhibition catalog and compared her grandmother's drawings to the other symbols on the obelisk, match after match after match. This wasn't coincidence. This was impossible. But it was real. She had to know more. She had to understand what it meant. And she knew that meant she was going to have to break about a dozen Academy rules to get the answers she needed. Cass smiled in the darkness. Sometimes being a good student meant knowing when to stop following the rules. Section 7 of the archive level was off-limits to students. The corridors were dark and dusty, clearly unused for years. Cass led the way with Professor Thelix and Ziara close behind. Her hands were sweating despite the cool air. "I still think this is unwise," Thelix muttered. "This could be a trap." "Then why did you come?" Cass asked. "Because if I am right about what you represent, you may be the most important human in the galaxy. And I have spent my life studying the ancient civilizations. I will not miss this moment, trap or not." They reached the specified location at exactly midnight. It was an old storage room filled with forgotten equipment and sealed containers. At first, Cass thought no one was there. Then a light flickered on in the corner and a figure stepped out of the shadows. She was an elderly human woman, thin and sharp-eyed, wearing clothes that looked expensive but practical. She studied Cass with an intensity that made her uncomfortable. "You came," the woman said. "Good. And you brought friends. That's acceptable. They would learn the truth soon enough anyway." She stepped forward, moving with surprising energy for someone who looked to be in her 80s. "My name is Dr. Ilara Chen. I am your cousin, Cassandra. Distant, many times removed, but family nonetheless." "I've never heard of you," Cass said. "No, you wouldn't have. My branch of the family took a different path long ago. We chose to stay awake while others slept." Dr. Chen gestured to some crates. "Please sit. This will take some time to explain, and you'll want to be sitting down." Against her better judgment, Cass sat. Ziara and Professor Thelix remained standing, alert for any sign of danger. "The Winters family is old, Cassandra. Much older than your records show. Your grandmother kept the documented history going back 800 years, yes? But the truth goes back much, much further." Dr. Chen's eyes had a distant look. 12,000 years, to be precise?" "That's impossible," Cass said. "Humans didn't even have civilization 12,000 years ago. We were still hunter-gatherers. That's what the history books say. And it's true in a way. But it's not the whole truth." Dr. Chen pulled out a small device and activated it. A hologram appeared, showing a star map. 12,000 years ago, humanity was not on Earth alone. We were everywhere. Thousands of worlds, millions of colonies. We were called the architects, and we were one of the galaxy's greatest civilizations. Professor Thelix made a choking sound. "That is impossible. The architects were not human. The legends describe them as masters of dimensional science, builders of impossible structures, defenders against the dark. They cannot have been human." "But they were," Dr. Chen said softly. "We were. Humanity ruled the stars, Professor. We built wonders. We allied with the Velkaran, the Solothians, the Therani, and dozens of other species. Together, we created an age of peace and prosperity that lasted thousands of years." "What happened?" Ziara asked, her skin pale with shock. Dr. Chen's expression darkened. "The Voidborn came. Entities from another dimension, drawn to our use of advanced technology. They consumed everything they touched. Entire star systems vanished. Fleets of ships were erased from existence. The Voidborn fed on energy, on matter, on life itself. They were hungry, and they were endless." The hologram changed, showing images of battles, ships fighting against things that looked like tears in space itself, planets protected by impossible shields, weapons that bent reality. "We fought them for 100 years, Dr. Chen continued, the architects and all our allies. We threw everything we had at the Voidborn, and slowly, we began to win. Our scientists discovered a way to create a dimensional prison, a trap that would seal the Voidborn away forever." "But there was a cost," Cass said quietly, understanding beginning to dawn. "Yes, a terrible cost. To power the prison, we had to collapse the galaxy's entire faster-than-light network. All our technology, all our advancement had to be shut down or destroyed. The dimensional prison needed the galaxy to appear empty, primitive, silent. If the Voidborn ever escaped, they would find nothing worth consuming. They would move on to other galaxies. So you destroyed everything, Professor Thelix said. All the wonders, all the knowledge. We saved everything that mattered, Dr. Chen corrected gently. We saved life. The Architect High Council made the decision. We would reset civilization, scatter populations across worlds at primitive technology levels, let them develop naturally, slowly, without the advanced science that attracted the Voidborn. Most humans were placed on Earth with no memory of what they had been. But not all, Cass said, touching her pendant. No, not all. Some families volunteered to become watchers. We would carry genetic keys, biological markers that could reactivate the old technology if it was ever needed again. The Winters family was one of these bloodlines. Your crest is not just a symbol, Cassandra. It's a mnemonic key designed to be remembered and passed down through generations. It's encoded in your DNA, passed from parent to child, waiting. Waiting for what? Cass asked, though she was afraid she knew the answer. The dimensional prison was never meant to last forever. It was designed to hold for exactly 12,000 years, long enough for the galaxy to rebuild, to develop new defenses, to be ready. Dr. Chen's voice was grim. The timer is almost up. The Voidborn are about to break free. The room was silent except for the hum of the hologram. Cass felt the weight of 12,000 years pressing down on her. All those generations of her family keeping the crest safe, passing down the pendant, maintaining traditions they didn't understand. The obelisk, Ziara said suddenly. It's a beacon. It activated when Cass got close because it recognized her genetic signature. Correct, Dr. Chen said. Beacons are scattered throughout the galaxy, hidden in plain sight, waiting for watchers to find them. When your genetic code came close enough to the obelisk, it began broadcasting a signal. That's how I found you. That's how others found you, too. Others? Cass asked sharply. There are factions in this galaxy who remember the old legends. The Karvathi have religious texts about the great enemy and the false ones who will release the devourer. They believe humans are connected to this prophecy. Some want to protect you, others want you dead, believing that will prevent the apocalypse. Professor Thelix spoke, his voice shaken. The Karvathi diplomat who has been watching Miss Winters, Ambassador Threnkal, he is a believer in the old prophecies. Yes, and he is not the only one watching. The Silothians want to find and destroy all architect technology. The Mercantile Consortium wants to exploit it. You have become the center of a storm, Cassandra. Cass stood up, pacing across the dusty floor. This was too much. Too big. Why me? There must be other watchers, other families. There are. 5 bloodlines in total, scattered across human space. But you are the first to activate a beacon. You are the first to wake up. That makes you special. That makes you important. I don't want to be special or important, Cass said. I just wanted to study dead civilizations in peace. The dead civilizations are not as dead as you thought, Dr. Chen said. And peace is running out. The dimensional prison is cracking. We've detected breaches, small ones so far, but growing. Something is trying to break through. The Voidborn, Ziara whispered. Yes, they remember us. They remember this galaxy, and they're hungry. Cass looked at Professor Thelix. You said you feared this. How did you know? The professor's scales seemed to droop. My people, the Karvathi, we are descended from the Velkaran. When the architects reset civilization, they helped some species preserve fragments of knowledge in the form of religious texts and myths. My order has studied these texts for generations. We knew something terrible was locked away. We knew humans were connected, but we did not understand how deeply until now. There's more you need to know, Dr. Chen said. "This academy, it's not built here by accident. The founders discovered this station was constructed on top of an architect facility. They couldn't access the deeper levels, but they knew something important was here. Director Cal Seth has been trying to unlock those levels for decades." "And now he can," Cass said, understanding. "Because I'm here. My genetic code is the key." "One of the keys. To fully access the facility, you need to activate the obelisk first. It will awaken more of your genetic memory. You'll begin to remember things your ancestors knew. It's not pleasant, but it's necessary." Cass looked at her friends. Ziara's skin was shifting through worried colors. Professor Thelix looked older than she'd ever seen him. They had come here to support her, and now they were caught up in something that could affect the entire galaxy. "What if I refuse?" Cass asked. "What if I just walk away? Then the Voidborn will break free in a few weeks or months. And this galaxy will have no defenses. Billions will die, maybe trillions. The architects built weapons and shields that can fight the Voidborn, but they're all locked away, waiting for someone with the right genetic key to wake them up." "No pressure, then?" Cass said with bitter humor. Dr. Chen smiled slightly. "I know this is overwhelming, but you're not alone. I'm here. There are others who will help, and your friends seem loyal." "We are," Ziara said firmly. Professor Thelix nodded agreement. Cass took a deep breath. She thought about her grandmother, passing down the pendant and the journals. She thought about 300 generations of her family, keeping faith with a promise they didn't fully understand. She thought about the galaxy, unaware of the danger approaching. "All right," she said. "Tell me what I need to do." The next 3 days passed in a blur. Dr. Chen introduced Cass to 3 other awakened watchers who had arrived on the station. Each came from a different human family. Each carried their own version of the genetic key. There was Marcus Webb, a quiet engineer from Luna Colony, who wore a ring with a symbol of 3 interlocking circles. His family had always been builders, he said, and now he understood why. Sarah Kim was a teacher from Proxima Station, young and fierce, with a tattoo of a star wrapped in thorns. And finally, Thomas Okafor, a deep space surveyor who had seen things in the outer rim that made him believe in the old legends before he even knew they were true. "We each carry a piece of the puzzle," Dr. Chen explained as they gathered in a secure room she had rented off station. "Individually, our genetic keys can activate basic architect systems. Together, you can unlock the full defense network." 5 keys, you said, Cass noted. "There are only 4 of us here. The 5th watcher is complicated. Her name is Jennifer Zhao. She was investigating architect sites independently when the Carvathi arrested her 6 months ago. They're holding her in a detention facility, charged with heretical archaeology and disturbing sacred sites." "So we need to break her out," Sarah said bluntly. "That's what you're saying?" "Eventually, yes. But first we need to access the archive beneath this station. We need to understand what we're dealing with. The obelisk in the exhibition is just a terminal, a way to communicate with the larger system. The real archive is buried deep below us." Professor Thelix had been working with Director Calseth, and between the 2 of them, they had managed to keep the Carvathi observers from getting too close to Cass. But it was only a temporary solution. Ambassador Threnkal was asking more questions every day. Other factions were also mobilizing. "The Silothian delegation departed yesterday," Thelix reported. "But I have it on good authority they left behind surveillance equipment throughout the station. They are watching for any sign of architect technology activation." "Let them watch," Director Calseth said when he joined their meeting. The tall Zetherian folded himself into a chair that was too small for him. "If the Voidborn truly are returning, we need the defense network active regardless of political concerns. Miss Winters, are you prepared to access the archive?" Cass wasn't sure she'd ever be prepared, but she nodded anyway. "What do I need to do?" "Come with me." They traveled deep into the station's infrastructure, passing through maintenance tunnels and sealed sections that hadn't been opened in decades. Director Cal Seth had the access codes, but even he seemed nervous as they descended. "I have spent 30 years trying to reach this place," he said. "I knew there was something here, something important. My own people have legends of a facility built by the ancients, hidden inside a dead moon. When I discovered this station was built around that moon, I devoted my life to reaching its core." They reached a massive door, seamless metal covered in symbols that made Cass's eyes hurt to look at directly. She felt a pull toward it, the same sensation she'd experienced with the obelisk. "Place your hand here," Dr. Chen instructed, pointing to a specific symbol. Cass pressed her palm against the door. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the symbols began to glow, starting from where she touched and spreading outward in complex patterns. She felt something inside her respond, like a part of her brain suddenly waking up after a long sleep. The door opened silently, revealing a corridor that stretched down into darkness. Lights activated as they entered, responding to their presence. The walls were covered in the same symbols from the obelisk, but here they moved and shifted, rearranging themselves into new patterns. "It's beautiful," Ziara breathed. They walked for what felt like hours, though Cass's sense of time was distorted by the strange architecture. Finally, they entered a vast chamber so large that the ceiling disappeared into shadows above. Hundreds of obelisks stood in perfect rows, each one glowing softly with inner light. "This is just a storage facility," Marcus said, his engineer's eye taking in the structure. "Look at the power conduits. This room is designed to interface with something much larger." He was right. At the center of the chamber stood a raised platform with 5 indentations, each marked with a different symbol. Cass recognized hers immediately. The others matched the symbols worn by her fellow watchers. "The 5 of you must place your hands in these spots simultaneously," Dr. Chen said. "But we only have 4 of you. We cannot fully activate the system without the 5th key." "Can we activate it partially?" Cass asked. "Perhaps. But I don't know what that might do. The architects designed these systems to require all 5 keys for safety reasons." Before anyone could respond, alarms blared throughout the chamber. Red lights flashed, and a robotic voice spoke in a language Cass had never heard but somehow understood. "Warning! Unauthorized presence detected. Defensive protocols activating. This facility is under quarantine." "What did you do?" Director Cal Seth demanded. "Nothing!" Cass shouted over the alarms. "I just opened the door!" Sections of the floor began rising, revealing weapons platforms that had been hidden beneath. They swiveled, targeting everyone in the room with focused energy beams. "The security system thinks we're intruders," Marcus said, backing away slowly. "It's going to kill us." "Cass, do something!" Ziara yelled. Without thinking, Cass ran to the central platform and slammed her hand into the indentation marked with her family's crest. Power surged through her, painful and overwhelming. Her vision went white, then filled with images that weren't her own. She saw battles in space, ships firing weapons that bent physics. She saw the Voidborn, horrible tears in reality that consumed everything they touched. She saw the Architect High Council making their terrible choice, sacrificing everything to save what mattered. She saw herself, or someone who looked like her, standing on this same platform 12,000 years ago. "For those who come after," the ancient architect said, and Cass realized she was watching her own ancestor. "We leave you this burden and this hope. May you be wiser than we were. May you be stronger than we were. And may you forgive us for what we have done." The vision ended. Cass found herself on her knees, gasping for breath. The weapons platforms had stopped moving, their targeting systems deactivated. The alarms had gone silent. "What happened?" Professor Thelix asked, rushing to help her up. I saw them. The architects, my ancestors. They left a message. Cass's voice was shaky. The security system wasn't trying to kill us. It was testing us, making sure we were real, that we were the descendants, not something pretending to be human. Did we pass? Sarah asked. The chamber answered her question. New lights activated throughout the space, and the obelisks began displaying information. Star maps appeared in holographic form above each one. Data streamed in languages both familiar and alien. We passed, Cass confirmed. But we triggered something else. Look. She pointed to the central platform where a holographic recording had begun to play. It showed a group of beings, most of them human, but some alien. The Architect High Council, Cass realized. They were the leaders who had made the decision 12,000 years ago. One of the humans stepped forward, a woman with the same eyes as Cass's grandmother. To our descendants, she said, if you are seeing this, then the time we feared has come. The dimensional prison is failing. The Voidborn are returning. We are sorry. We hoped 12,000 years would be enough time for the galaxy to prepare. But we know how hard it is to maintain vigilance across such spans of time. Another council member spoke, this one a crystalline being that must have been Vel-Karan. We have left you tools, weapons, shields, a defense network that spans the galaxy, but it requires all 5 genetic keys to activate fully. Find the other Watchers. Bring them together. Save our children. The hologram flickered and changed, showing the locations of hidden facilities throughout the galaxy. Cass saw Earth, Mars, a dozen human colonies she'd never heard of, each one marked with architect installations waiting to be awakened. There are so many, Thomas breathed. Of course there are, Director Cal Zeth said. The architects prepared for this moment. They knew the Voidborn would return. The question is, are we ready to use what they left us? The hologram showed one final image before fading. It was a star map with a countdown. 17 days remained before the dimensional prison would fail completely. 17 days, Marcus said. That's all the time we have to find the 5th Watcher, activate the defense network, and prepare the galaxy for an enemy from another dimension. That's impossible. The architects managed impossible things, Sarah said firmly. If they could sacrifice their entire civilization to save the galaxy, we can manage this. Cass looked at her fellow Watchers, at her friends, at the aliens who had chosen to help despite the danger. She thought about her grandmother's journal, about 300 generations of faith and duty. She thought about the billions of people across the galaxy who had no idea what was coming. We start by getting Jennifer Zhao out of Carvati detention, Cass said. Then we activate the defense network. We don't have time for anything else. The Carvathi will not release her willingly, Professor Thelix warned. This will cause a diplomatic incident. Then let it, Cass said. The galaxy is about to learn the truth about humans anyway. We might as well start with the hard parts. She turned to face the others, feeling the weight of her genetic heritage settling into place. She was a Watcher, descendant of the architects, keeper of humanity's lost legacy. The time for hiding was over. Let's wake up the galaxy, she said. The moment they activated even a partial connection to the archive, everything changed. Across the galaxy, ancient installations that had been dormant for 12,000 years began powering up. On Earth, a facility buried beneath the Sahara Desert came online. On Mars, hidden weapons platforms rose from beneath the red sand. On dozens of worlds that had never known human presence, architect technology woke up and started broadcasting. The galactic community panicked. Within hours, emergency sessions were called. Governments demanded explanations. The Carvathi religious faction claimed the prophecy was coming true. The Silothians mobilized their military fleet, convinced that the ancient enemy was returning. And at the center of it all was one young human woman who just wanted to understand why her family crest appeared on a 12,000-year-old artifact. "This is not how I wanted to spend my morning," Director Cal Seth said as he watched news feeds from across the galaxy. "We have effectively announced to every species that humans are connected to the lost civilizations. The political fallout will be catastrophic." "We don't have time for politics," Cass said. "We have 16 days now. We need to get Jennifer Zhao." "The Karvathi have moved her," Professor Thelix reported, checking his communications. "Ambassador Threnkal authorized her transfer to a more secure facility. He knows we need her." "Then we negotiate," Dr. Chen said. "We tell the ambassador the truth, all of it. He is a scholar beneath his political role. He might understand." They requested a meeting with Ambassador Threnkal. To Cass's surprise, he agreed immediately. They met in a neutral conference room, with security from 3 different species watching carefully. The ambassador was a large Karvathi, his scales marked with religious symbols, his multiple eyes fixed on Cass with an intensity that made her uncomfortable. "So," he said without preamble, "the humans were the architects. The legends were true. You understand what this means to my people? Your religious texts predicted this," Professor Thelix said. "You have known or suspected all along. We have prayed it was not true. We have prayed the false ones would never awaken." Threnkal's voice was heavy. "But here we are, and I must decide if I will help you doom the galaxy or save it." "The Voidborn are coming regardless of what we do," Cass said. "The dimensional prison is failing. We didn't cause that. The architects, my ancestors, they bought us 12,000 years. Now that time is up. And you want to activate ancient weapons, technology that could itself destroy the galaxy." "Technology that was designed to fight the Voidborn," Marcus corrected. "The architects knew what they were doing." "Did they?" "They destroyed their own civilization trying to stop the Voidborn. Perhaps that is what you will do as well." But Threnkal's voice had less certainty now. "Show me proof. Show me this threat is real." Dr. Chen pulled up data from the archive, readings from dimensional sensors that the architects had left scattered throughout the galaxy. The numbers were clear. The dimensional prison was cracking. Small breaches were occurring more frequently. Something was testing the walls of its cage. 3 days ago, a breach occurred near the Helix Nebula, Dr. Chen explained. A small one, only lasting seconds. But a patrol ship was caught in it. The ship and its crew of 37 beings simply ceased to exist. No wreckage, no distress call, just gone. Threnkal was silent for a long moment. Then he made a gesture with his clawed hands that Professor Thelix quietly translated as a prayer for the dead. "If what you say is true, then we are all in danger," the ambassador said finally. "I will release Jennifer Zhao to you, but I am coming with you when you activate the defense network. If I believe for one moment that you are a threat to the galaxy, I will stop you myself." "Fair enough," Cass said, though the threat made her nervous. They picked up Jennifer Zhao from Karvathi detention that same day. She was thin and tired-looking, with bruises from rough treatment, but her eyes were sharp and alert. When she saw the other watchers, she smiled. "Took you long enough," she said. "I was beginning to think I'd be stuck there until the Voidborn ate the galaxy." "You knew they were coming?" Sarah asked. "I've been tracking dimensional anomalies for 2 years. I figured out what they meant 6 months ago. That's why I was digging at architect sites. I was looking for anything that might help us survive." Jennifer looked at Cass. "You're the one who activated the beacon." "I felt it. Like something inside me woke up after sleeping my whole life." "That's exactly what it feels like," Cass agreed. With all 5 watchers together, they returned to the archive beneath the academy. This time, the security system welcomed them like old friends. The chamber seemed warmer, the lights brighter. They approached the central platform together. "Once we do this, there's no going back," Thomas said. "The galaxy will know what humans were, what we might become again." The galaxy already knows, Marcus pointed out. Half the species out there are demanding humans be controlled or quarantined. The other half want to study us or exploit what we know. We can't undo what's already been done. Then let's finish it, Cass said. The 5 watchers placed their hands in the indentations simultaneously. Power surged through the platform, through their bodies, through the entire station. Cass felt her consciousness expand, touching systems across vast distances. She sensed the defense network coming online piece by piece. Battle stations in deep space powered up. Shield generators around vulnerable worlds activated. A fleet of autonomous defense ships, hidden in asteroid fields and nebulae for 12,000 years, began running system checks. And deep in the quantum matrix of the archive, an artificial intelligence woke up. "Hello," it said, its voice appearing directly in their minds. "I am Sentinel-7, one of 12 AIs created to coordinate the defense network. It has been a very long time. The other Sentinels report ready status. The galaxy has changed significantly since we entered sleep mode. Updating databases. Analyzing current threat level." The AI paused, and Cass could almost feel it thinking. "Confirmed. Dimensional prison integrity at 14% and failing. Void-borne emergence projected in 14 days, 9 hours, 22 minutes. Recommend immediate defensive preparations." "Can we stop them?" Cass asked. "The architects could not defeat the Voidborn, only contain them," Sentinel-7 replied. "However, analysis suggests the galactic civilization has advantages our creators lacked. You have learned from our mistakes. You have united multiple species in peaceful cooperation. The architects were arrogant, believing they could solve any problem through technology alone. You may be wiser." "That's not exactly reassuring," Jennifer muttered. "I was not programmed for reassurance. I was programmed for defense coordination." The AI's tone was almost apologetic. "However, I can report that the defense network is 68% operational. With full cooperation from the current galactic community, we estimate a 41% probability of successfully defending against void-borne emergence." "Less than half," Sarah said. "Those aren't good odds." "They are better than 0, Ambassador Threnkall said. He had been silent through the activation, watching everything carefully. Now he stepped forward. "I will speak to the Galactic Council. I will tell them everything. They must know what we face." The next few days were chaos. Ambassador Threnkall presented the evidence to the Galactic Council. Some species believed him immediately. Others demanded more proof. They got it 3 days later when another dimensional breach occurred, this time near a populated system. A void-borne entity, small but hungry, emerged for nearly a minute before the architect automated defenses destroyed it. But in that minute, it consumed 3 mining stations and their entire populations. 2,000 beings simply ceased to exist. After that, no one questioned the threat anymore. The Galactic Council met in extraordinary session. Cass and the other Watchers were called to testify. She stood before representatives of 47 species and told them the truth about humanity's past and the galaxy's future. "We didn't ask for this responsibility," she said. "My family kept the crest for 300 generations without knowing why. We were farmers and teachers and ordinary people. But our ancestors chose to sacrifice their entire civilization to save life in this galaxy. They trusted that their descendants would be ready when the time came. So here we are, and we're asking you to trust us now." The debate lasted for hours. Some species wanted to take control of the defense network themselves. Others argued that humanity should be given authority as the architect's heirs. A few smaller factions still insisted humans should be isolated to prevent catastrophe. In the end, it was the Silothian delegate who settled the matter. She was ancient, older than anyone in the chamber, and when she spoke, everyone listened. "My people remember the architects," she said. Not in history books, but in genetic memory passed through our elder mothers. The architects were arrogant, yes. They made mistakes. But when the moment came, they chose sacrifice over survival. They chose to save us all rather than save themselves. Their descendants have shown they carry that same spirit. I say we trust them. I say we fight together, as the ancient alliance once did. One by one, the other delegates agreed. The vote was unanimous. Humanity would coordinate the defense network with oversight from a joint council representing all galactic species. We have 11 days, Cass told the assembled delegates. Sentinel-7 says we need to evacuate vulnerable populations, distribute defensive technology, and coordinate fleet positions. The Voidborn will emerge at multiple points simultaneously. We need every ship, every weapon, every species working together. The galaxy mobilized. It was unprecedented cooperation on a scale no one had seen in recorded history. Karvathi battle cruisers took positions alongside human colony defense ships. Solothian scientists shared data with Thessian engineers. Even the Mercantile Consortium contributed, providing transport ships for evacuations. And through it all, Cass coordinated with Sentinel-7, feeling the vast weight of the defense network responding to her commands. She barely slept. None of the Watchers did. They took shifts managing different sectors, their genetic keys allowing them to interface with architect technology in ways no one else could. On the 11th day, the dimensional prison failed completely. The Voidborn emerged in 17 locations simultaneously. They were worse than Cass had imagined from the archive's recordings. Reality itself seemed to break around them. Ships that got too close simply stopped existing. Planets touched by their hunger became lifeless spheres of nothing. But the galaxy was ready. Architect battle stations opened fire with weapons that could tear through dimensions. Shield generators protected vulnerable worlds, buying time for evacuations. The autonomous defense fleet engaged the Voidborn entities, sacrificing themselves to prevent the enemy from reaching populated systems. Cass watched through Sentinel-7's sensors as the battle unfolded across the galaxy. She saw courage from species who barely knew each other. She saw sacrifice. She saw the same spirit that had driven the architects to give up everything 12,000 years ago. The battle lasted 3 days, 17 Voidborn entities against the united forces of the galaxy and the ancient defense network. In the end, 14 were destroyed. 3 were forced back through dimensional rifts and sealed away with new containment fields, bought at a terrible price. The casualties were enormous. Entire fleets were lost. Millions died defending their worlds. But the galaxy survived. When it was over, Cass found herself back at the Academy, standing in the exhibition hall where this had all begun. The obelisk still stood on its pedestal. But now she understood what it truly was. A message from her ancestors. A promise kept across 300 generations. Ziara found her there, tired but alive. "We did it," her friend said. "We actually did it." "We did," Cass agreed. "But it's not over. The Voidborn are still out there, in other dimensions, looking for ways in. We'll have to be ready, always." "Then it's fortunate the galaxy has the architect's descendants to watch over them," Professor Thelix said, joining them. He looked different now, older but somehow lighter, as if a great burden had been lifted. "You have proven worthy of your heritage, Cassandra Winters." Director Cal Seth brought news from the Galactic Council. Humanity would be granted full membership, along with access to architect technology for all species willing to use it responsibly. The Academy would become the center for studying and preserving architect knowledge, and the 5 Watchers would coordinate the defense network, ensuring the galaxy remained protected. "It's strange," Cass said later, as she walked through the Academy grounds with her pendant warm against her chest. 3 weeks ago, I was just a student studying dead civilizations. Now I'm responsible for keeping the galaxy alive." "You were always responsible," Dr. Chen said. The elderly woman had found Cass watching the stars. Every watcher carries that responsibility in their blood. You just didn't know it yet. What happens to us now? Cass asked. The watchers, I mean. You live, you study, you prepare. The Voidborn will try again someday. Maybe in another 12,000 years. Maybe sooner. The Defense Network needs people who can coordinate it, who understand what the architects tried to accomplish. Dr. Chen smiled. But you're still young, Cassandra. You have time to be a student and a guardian both. Cass looked up at the stars, feeling the Defense Network humming at the edge of her consciousness. She thought about her grandmother, about all the women and men in her family who had kept faith with a duty they didn't understand. She thought about the architects who had given up everything to save the galaxy. The phoenix wrapped around a star, from ashes, rebirth, from sacrifice, hope, from one student's curiosity, the awakening of humanity's true legacy. All right, Cass said quietly. I can do this. We can do this. And somewhere in the vast dark between dimensions, the Voidborn waited and watched and hungered. But for now, the galaxy was safe. The architects had returned, not to conquer or rule, but to protect. The student had become the guardian, the mystery had become purpose, and humanity, the youngest species in the galactic community, revealed itself as the oldest defenders returned from exile. The story was just beginning.